totally, shut down and they don't want to go there ever again. But that, you got to push them a little bit.
Okay.
But with a lot of other people, you don't just want to train into painful ranges,
Right.
because then eventually the body starts to fight back, and it's, I don't like that, and it'll start to create more of the muscle guarding, more of that just protective mechanism, and then that's going to just make stuff much more difficult.
So generally pain-free.
So pain-free is going to be more successful.
Okay.
One of the little things that I tell my patients a lot is, I am happier with a smaller pain-free movement than a larger painful movement. Even starting with a smaller range of motion, and again, thinking of it as kind of building more energy into the system, the more that we can create that movement, create some energy in there, feed nutrition, nutrients, and oxygen to those tissues, eventually they'll be able to handle more, and then you can increase the range, and pretty soon it's like, oh, okay, I couldn't get that high before. But if you're just hammering into the pain every single time, the brain isn't going to like it, and the body will start to, no, we're not going there, and it'll just tighten up and fight you. I know where I was going with all of this. So I was talking about the isolated integration, where you might take more of a whole body movement to feed into helping that part. So then the other end of the spectrum is the integrated isolation, where then you make it have to work harder on its own. So that might be more of the less of the lunge, just a shoulder having to do more work, or even moving in the direction where it's having to create more stability through the system and getting into, say, one-legged stuff, things like that. It's having to work, but it has less resources through the rest of the body to be able to help it out. So it's got to be stronger, be a little tougher. And so that might be a progression that I'll take people through. Initially, we're doing where everything's moving, and then it might be, okay, the feet are still, and then maybe toe touch, and then eventually into like a single leg balance, because then they're having to create all that stability through the system while they're still going through a dynamic motion. How about, there's a little standing abdominal, like mini workout that we could kind of run through. That's a shoulder thing that then we can kind of tie in more load concepts, but it would be a fun interactive thing.
Great.
So come on up, just find a spot. Let me think how I want to do this. Okay, so first we're going to start with feet get to be just kind of hip width apart, normal kind of neutral stance, and we're going to do some punches in 6 directions. So it's going to be shoulder work, but it's also going to be some ab stuff, and then I'll kind of explain as I'm going to tweak how we're going to do it into creating more of a load in different parts of the body, kind of based on this shoulder stuff. So first, just kind of reaching out in front, kind of up overhead, but here, as we're reaching forward, we're getting a little bit more of a load through the posterior part of the body. So the back of the shoulders, the butt, the shoulder, the glutes, all of that. So then that's anterior. Then if we start going posterior, so you're still reaching overhead, but you're going backwards, we're getting more of a load through the abs. And everything is working pretty easy, good. And then we'll go same side lateral, so reaching out to the side and just kind of going back and forth. So again, this tends to get the lateral side of the body a little bit more towards the back of the butt. And then we can go opposite side lateral overhead. Yep. So this would be a bit more through the obliques, kind of getting a little more of the abs. And then we have the rotations. So the same side rotation, one arm reaching back, again, we're getting more abs in the front side of the body. as you're reaching back. And then the other direction would be opposite side rotation, reaching up and across the body. So here, again, we're getting a little bit more of a load into the back side of the body. So now, that's kind of a standing ab work, shoulder work. But if we wanted to emphasize one part of the body, so let's maybe first go with the abs. So here, let's go single leg balance, toe touch on one foot. So you can just kind of toe touch. And we're just going to go in 3 directions with the reaches, emphasizing the abs a little bit more. So reaching up and back. So as we do this posterior reach, you can feel how this is lengthening through the abs, and that is stretching them like the rubber band, turning things on. And then we'll go opposite side lateral overhead. Good, one more. And then same side rotation overhead. So these 3 directions, we're emphasizing the abs the whole time. So being on the one foot, again, we're letting more stability happen through everything. The pelvis gets to move a little more freely, so the abs have to slow that down as the shoulders are working. So let's go to the other foot. Now, wanting to increase the load for the front side of the body, we're going to just do those same reaches with one arm, but each time the other arm is going to reach back behind us so that we're creating more of a load because we're creating more stretch. So let's go right arm reaching up overhead. Each time the left hand is reaching way back behind us. Good. One more. Okay. So now right hand going opposite side lateral overhead. Left hand still reaching way back behind you. So you can imagine if you had some dumbbells, it gets even harder. You can create more of a load. So then now the right hand is going to do that same side rotation overhead. Left hand is reaching back still. And here we're getting a huge load through the abs. Shoulders are obviously doing a lot of work. Shoulder blades are having to move. And we're doing whole body kind of movements.
Whole body's cracking.
Yeah. Okay. So that was kind of doing more of an emphasis, loading the front side of the body. So let's go back to the left foot. Now, what we're going to do is emphasize the back side of the body. And so for this, the right hand is always going to reach forward the whole time, because as you're reaching forward, we're putting more stretch, more load through the back side of the body. So the left hand is going to do that anterior overhead reach, while the right hand is doing the just anterior reach. Yep. Good. One more. So then the left hand is going to do the same side lateral while the right hand is doing that same reach. So you can kind of feel how the shoulder blades are having to move across the body and really stretch through the rhomboids, through everything there, but we're kind of tying in all the other parts. So now the left hand is going to do the opposite side rotation while that right hand is still reaching anterior. And so that's just kind of briefly kind of taking you through how, as you can tell, that can be an ab workout, but putting an emphasis on loading one part of the body, putting more emphasis on the abs, more emphasis on the back. But as we do all those combinations, shoulder blades are having to go all over crazy space. Hips are getting to move, pelvis is wiggling. I was choosing to do it more in a single leg balanced toe touch to make it a little more ab focused. But you can do it single leg balance, that's even harder. You can have feet stationary in a zillion different positions based on what you're after. And you can even do it where you're adding movement and things like lunges in different directions. If, say, you wanted to do something, just thinking of you, Michael, in tennis, like right-handed, going for a backswing, but in your training, you just want to create more of a load for the whole backside of the body so that you're turning on more proprioceptors, trying to tap into more resources. It might be a lateral lunge where the right hand is doing that reach for the backswing position while the left hand is reaching forward because you want to create more of a load on the backside of the body. And so that's just kind of thinking through one example of how you could kind of apply some of that concept of trying to increase the load for a more efficient explode, putting it more task specific like a tennis swing. But then the fun part gets to just trying to think through all that stuff, be individual with the person that you're working with, and then specific to whatever the thing is that you're trying to improve. So many of the people that we see here, they just want to be healthier, and they just want to live better. So, squatting, lunging, walking, reaching, pulling, lifting, carrying, those are all things that they want to do. So with the different exercises, picking movements that make them carry stuff, make them lift stuff, make them reach stuff, make them lunge, make them squat and jump and all of that stuff. But playing with, okay, well, how can I make this a little bit more of a load to help their explode? How can I make this so that more of the body has to work so that we can help whatever part we're after? Does that make enough sense? Confusing a little?
No, question on what you were saying to Teddy. Someone who's 80 years old, who's
Yeah.
been conditioned to be a certain way. It sounds like maybe our goal isn't necessarily that we're going to change the tissue per se, as much as we're going to change the ability to move in these different patterns.
Well, no, I think we can change the tissue. We just may not be able to make a huge change to the structure.
Okay.
So more so that the joints, they're surrounded by the fascia, by the joint capsule. That stuff has the ability to change, but I don't think that we're going to make a big dent in 84 years of having it get to that stage within, a year or two of training. I mean, we can see some really significant changes, but I don't think it's going to be a dramatic change to the structure. But the tissue can become more hydrated, more elastic,
more pliable,
more resilient, springy.
So
all
we
of
may
those
not
things.
notice that he carries himself differently
As much,
visually,
right?
as we might see him actually function
Yeah,
or
and
not
then he
have
has
the
a
pain,
right,
less
right,
pain.
and has an easier
So that should
time.
be more of where we're heading, or where our focus is.
Yeah, I mean, helping people function better.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, I do think that it is possible with enough consistent, dedicated effort on the person's part to make some changes that you could see visually, standing taller, all of that, a little bit more open chest. But that's going to take a lot of consistency on his part individually outside of all of this. I mean, we get to see people maybe an hour to 3 hours out of a week, and then there's all those other hours. I don't remember what the numbers are. Was it 270 or more than that per week that they're on their own? And if they're not actively doing stuff to change, well, then they're going to stay the same.
That they forget,
Totally.
or they have just,
Well,
they're fine with how they are.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot of effort for people to want to make that much change in their bodies and to stick with it. I mean, it's discipline, it's those habits, making new habits are tough. And I describe posture as it's a behavior and we can control our behaviors, but it's a habit, And the body is an efficient machine, and if it can have the chance to power down and turn everything off and hang on the ligaments, well, it'll do that. But over time, then those parts will just get glued that way, and that's, we're fighting against it.
I have a question.
Sure.
This is like kind of really specific. You know, like on these TRX type things,
Mhm.
when you're like, I know, I don't know what they're called, Casper's.
Yeah, what do you guys call them?
A waste of money.
I think they're pretty cool. So like the thing where you go like this and you
Yeah.
pull yourself up. Are your shoulder blades supposed to draw together, or are you supposed to try to keep your scapula like flat across your back?
Yes, to both.
Okay,
So-
so like practice both,
So, well,
or like is both are valuable?
both are valuable, but yes,
I mean,
being
yeah.
able to like let them round, but then
Okay.
have the ability to kind of pull back and pinch. And so you want them to have control through a big range of motion.
Because like in Pilates, after doing my second training, they talked a lot about like wanting to keep your scapula nice and like flat across your back. Not that doing scapular, what is it called?
Retraction.
Retraction is not important, and to practice that as well. But that a lot of people like can't keep their scapula flat. Like so practicing
Yeah.
all the hug and tree stuff to not go like to this. Does that make sense?
I think
Well,
they're
so I'm
saying
like-
it wrong. It's not about keeping it flat, it's about it not winging. They're supposed
Right,
to,
right,
they're supposed to
exactly.
retract,
But
but not
winging.
supposed to go into a
like
big
this.
anterior tilt.
Yes.
Right, so
Yeah.
but like for that, so
Mhm.
it's okay that they like,
Yes, because I think you know, what they're getting at is like that sitting posture. The shoulder blades, they kind of come around the corner, and that's one of those things that contributes to things like shoulder impingement. So people tend to get stuck there where the rhomboids and all of those muscles are stretched and weak. So getting them back and being able to retract is helpful.
okay,
Right.
right.
But we want control through a bigger range of motion.
So like to get to here and then to practice like retraction and then to go back, like kind of like
Yeah,
kind of
see,
differentiate
Well, yes.
between the two.
I feel like
Yes.
some people I have to use that, have to have me feel my back just to understand
Totally.
where they're supposed to move.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's almost I have them exaggerate it just to get them to move properly.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I totally
that's
agree.
that's how I can get people to actually use those muscles is to exaggerate the movement.
Yep.
Okay.
Whether or not it's necessary in our movement, I don't know, but it's the way I can get people to.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And exaggerating the movements, one of the ways that you can think about it is then you're taking the person's limits and pushing the limits further out there. So when people have injuries, you know, with anything, the movement, whatever they're doing, has reached the limit of their body's ability to handle that motion, that force. They hit their threshold. Beyond that threshold, tissues break, and then they're injured. If we can increase their limits and their threshold, then in daily life, they're not bumping up against their limits so much. Exaggerating the motions is one way to be able to push those limits further out there. Because yeah, in daily life, just the emptying the dishwasher, doing all the regular stuff, you're not having to move quite so far. But then you put somebody in the garage and there's all the crap in the way and they're reaching for that one thing way up on the shelf there and then they're at their limit and that's
Yeah.
when things can go awry. But if they've trained and they've exaggerated those motions, then the body says, oh, look, we can get up, oh, we can get a little further, okay, we can grab that thing and come back, nothing bad happened. So the exaggerating movements, I think, is a great strategy. There you go.
My take on all this with everybody I've seen, I've had so many people with shoulder issues that I've studied beyond anything I was saying for me. And like you were saying before, most people's posture are elevated and shoulder rotated, right? So they have thoracic flexion, their scapula instead of being flat is into a big anterior tilt, right?
Yep.
Right, which creates that winging. So what I try and do with everybody, most people I see that have hip minor issues, tight,
Yep.
subscap, tight, lat
Yep.
tight. So obviously I'm doing all that tissue work. But the biggest thing is, yes, I try and exaggerate the shoulder movement, but in the proper patterns. Most people that I've seen, if I say I want you to do this kind of thing, where you're going to exaggerate the protraction, retraction,
Mhm.
most of them do it if they don't know how to do it right. huge anterior
And
tilt, and then they retract, still maintain that anterior tilt, so there's jamming their capsule, right?
Yeah.
So
That's a
until
good
I feel
point.
like I can actually teach them to get their low traps on, so that winging this thing out and have that shoulder blade from the side be like this instead of like this, that it seems to be for not.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
would-
biggest thing. I try to get people to control
Yeah.
their shoulder blades in every possible plane they can,
Yeah.
as long as they can keep it from going into a huge anterior tilt.
Yes, yeah, I would agree with that.
In everything,
a
from
lot of
overhead to
people
in
get-
front to down
Like
below.
trying to get the
Yep.
structure in place before you like do big movements, so that your structure is not
Right,
like
right.
this.
Well, it's just
It's
people will
better.
go
Yeah.
like this, and then their shoulder blades stop doing their protraction with that posterior tilt, and everything is just jamming
Yeah.
the capsule,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yes, it makes a big difference to be able to get the body in a position so that the mechanics and all the sequencing is ideal.
Yeah, that's why I have
For sure.
such an issue with people saying like, pull your shoulder blades back,
Right.
shoulder blades
Like,
back,
that's
and then
not a
do a
big
thing, because
Right.
that's not how our shoulder blades and humors are supposed to move. They're supposed to work congruently, right?
Right, yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
jam them back and then do
Right.
this. That's just doing the exact opposite of what we want. So
Yeah.
they should all flow together.
Yeah.
So I'm always like
Flowing.
wide and down, let it kind of happen together, or up and around, let it happen together.
Mhm.
You know, whatever trajectory you start, you finish. You don't. If I'm gonna start up here with my shoulder blades in this big upward rotation elevation, if I'm gonna start pulling down, I go into a downward rotation, right? It should continue that downward rotation the whole time, right? As opposed to I continue downward rotation and then I can't do it anymore. Now I go into a
Right,
elevation,
yes.
but my arm's still going down.
Totally agree.
Again, jamming the capsule.
And that's definitely where people reach their weak points and the system just reverts to the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And it'll always pick the path of least resistance. And if that's a dysfunctional pattern, that's what it'll stick in. And then, then it's just being trained over and over again in that dysfunctional pattern.
So what I'm taking away from this is, for me, doing all that mobility work is phenomenal.
Yep.
I love that, getting all that without really load, just kind of changing all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then incorporating all that more intensive shoulder blade control thing that I've got with load.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The one other little
Do you
element
need more
that I would-
retentive?
About people moving?
throw into that is just not to overdo the internal cues, but try and create the external cues more. The internal cues being, okay, I want you to, posteriorly tilt your shoulder
Yeah, yeah.
blade.
Putting
Getting
your
the
hand on
mind
it,
to
got it.
try and consciously control that gets tricky when people are trying to do real world things, because we operate subconsciously. And so that's like one of those other little pet peeves, and maybe that'll be another talk about the, never let the knee go past the toes, or, keep it only over the second toe kind of thing. It's like, well, okay, that's going to be hard to get through life with doing that.
Can't play a sport ever again.
Mhm.
Some people
Yeah.
with really long femurs can't physically do a squat without their knees going over their toes.
Totally. Yeah. I mean that.
It's like not physical. It just doesn't
Yeah,
work.
and then it creates too much of that mind, like the little mind games that you play with somebody when you're playing tennis or playing golf, and you want to mess with your buddy, like, you say, oh, what are you doing so great today? Your swing is so much better. Are you like breaking at the elbow more, or you must be like rotating through the hips? Then you get their mind thinking about, well, what am I doing? And then they start screwing up their old swing because you got them played in the mind games. Yeah, so the internal cues get cumbersome for the brain to try and process all of that. The external cues of just setting up the movement or the exercise environment so that you're getting the body to do the reaction you want works much better. And say, okay, well, if you want them to bend their knee more, okay, well, I want the target lower. So then just to get to the target, they've got to get more bend up the knee.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.